I'm going to tell you guys a two-part question that was pivotal in me walking away from Christianity and all other subsequent religions that I studied, and even causes me to not 100% agree with the Hermetics. Yo, what's up, everybody? This is your Coach Renz, and first and foremost, I want to thank Vicky Shorts for when she came and she visited Atlanta. She stopped by and we had a great conversation, great time talking. Her and her nieces, it was awesome. I appreciate you coming into town and visiting with me. If you're in town, Atlanta, come talk to me. Let's have a chit chat. Also, I want to announce the winner of our 10-pack Uncle Renz popcorn giveaway, Papa, the master student. You are the winner, bro, of the 10-pack of Uncle Renz gourmet popcorn. If you would go to urpopcorn, the letter U, the letter R, the word popcorn.com, go into the contact me and tell me your 10 flavors that you would like, as well as your address so that I can get that shipped out to you most Ricky Tick. And if you would like to participate in our next giveaway, then go ahead and do hashtag Uncle Renz Popcorn down below. And you must also be a subscriber. And I thank all of my subscribers and all of my patrons for their support. And if you're finding me for the first time, hit that subscribe button, buddy. Helps out the channel. Now, before I even get started with this, I want to go ahead and say that many people are going to listen to this and say that it's blasphemous, that I'm going to hell, that I'm crazy, that this is malarkey, it's crazy, all kind of little things. Hey, guess what? You can put that in comments, but I'm not really reading those nor paying attention. But if it's good enough, you might get a dig in the crates video. So, a two-part question that caused me to really walk away from traditional religions. But did I walk away and become an atheist? No. Why? Because even an atheist can't answer this question. No theology can answer these questions, nor can any atheist answer this question, because the question has no answer. No one is able to fathom this. No scientist can prove or disprove this. So before anybody tries to come out and quote me some scripture or quote me some Bhagavad Gita or whatever you have, the Hermetics, you really can't answer this question. And that question is this. If God created everything in whatever version a person calls God, or if the energy that is determined as the Big Bang created everything, what created that energy? What created the substance that you're talking about? I mean, if God in the Buddhist, well, they don't really have a God, but the Hindu, the Christian, the Muslim, the Jew, the Zoroastrian, even in the Hermetics, the all, what created that being? If everything was created through the word, through the speech, the vibration of a creator, what created the creator? If everything was created through the Big Bang, what created that initial energy of the Big Bang? Now, I know you're saying that based on the laws of thermodynamics, that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but at some point, that energy was created. And why do we have this thought process? Why do we have this theory? Because everybody at some point has to say, the energy was already there. God was already there. Whether it's Allah, whether it's Enlil, Anu, Jehovah, no matter what you call them, it was already there. That's the answer. That's everybody's answer. And really, it's the only answer that you can have, is that we don't know. It's just always been. And here's the thing about it. It doesn't bother me about this question anymore because we're never going to know. We don't have the ability to know. Our minds, our consciousness in this physical state is finite. There are things on higher planes of existence right now that there's an answer for, but yet we can't answer it because our finite brain really can't get us there. And maybe at the next emanation of your existence, maybe your brain will be at a conscious level that is a little bit higher, and then you can understand it. But for right now, we can't. But I honestly believe, which is why there is a religion, I can't remember the name of it right now, but it talks about the fact that you take Jacob's ladder and there's like 11 rungs, and the pinnacle is you given to the 11th. I think this is Buddhism. You get to that 11th rung, but at the 12th level, no one has the consciousness to get there. And at that level, the 12th, is where the creator abodes. That's the mind of the creator of the universe. And because our minds or our consciousness will never be infinite, it would always have a level of finite to it. We'll never just get to that point. So, it's a question that I don't mind not being able to answer, but what I did discover is that no religion nor scientist can answer that question. So it was a question that brought me peace. In actuality, it disturbed me for a little bit because I sought an answer. I did my due diligence to find an answer. But no piece of scripture is proof. No piece of writing is proof. No philosophy is proof. Because at the end of the day, all of those are the thought of a person. They're the thought of a person. And even if you say that it was divinely inspired, but it was divinely inspired, but still leaving holes and gaps because it still doesn't tell you from whence these things came. So therefore, what created the all? Now, in the Hermetics, there's the idea of the divine paradox. The divine paradox is simply this, that the all is in all, but all is not the all. So the all is in all, but all are not the all, because we all exist. Everything in the universe exists as a state of thought, a state of consciousness from the all. And although it comes from the all, it is not the all. So that the headboard of a bed comes from the consciousness of the all, created through the thought of the all, but the headboard is not the all. Otherwise, the headboard would know that it is the all, because at no point can the all not know itself. So at no point can, if put it in simpler terms, God cannot know that it is God, nor can it take a piece of itself and then recreate it into something else that's separate, because if it's at any time separated from itself, then it cannot be the all. So I do understand that aspect, and I agree with that aspect from the Hermetics, but the question still is, what created that all? Where did that all come from? When did it come into existence? At some point, it had a beginning. So that's a question that we'll never know the answer. We'll never know the answer, and I'm fine with that. But it's a question that made me say that, okay, people claim that God is God, and Allah is Allah, and Jehovah is Jehovah, and Yahweh is Yahweh, but yet, where did it come from? No one had an answer. Now, I know many people are in the comments are going to try to prove it, but there's really no proof to it. So I probably won't even bother with those comments, especially if you write in all caps and no paragraphs. I never read those. So the second part of this question, as I started to think about that, of course, that led me into the research of many different ancient religions. And when you study ancient religions, you'll see that they all have some form of a creation story. Some of the most interesting ones are when the spider god, like such as Anansi, well, not Anansi, but Anansi is a spider god. But when the spider, the great creative spider, created the universe, because spiders weave webs, and or the earth was created by this god, or the heavens and the firmament was separated, and the waters from the waters, and Ptah and Newt and all these different creation stories. You're researching all these creation stories, and then you start and you research the ancient religions, the current religions. And one of the things that you come away with, if you're a true historian, see, many of you are not true scholarly historians, and here's why. Because you imprint your current ideology on the people of that day. Anytime you take, and I had a 6th grade teacher, Mr. Ragsdale, who called it historism. I don't even know if that's a real word, but he called it historism. Is when you take your consciousness of the day, your rules of today, your morality of today, and you place it on the morality of the people then. Let me give you an example. Many people, most people, hopefully in America, most people, I know not all, most people in America will say that the institution of chattel slavery is wrong. That no man should own another man in perpetuity, pass them down through the generations, and if a child is born from the slave, that child is born a slave. So generational slavery and generational inheritance of slaves is wrong. That's what we would think today. That's most people would think that. There's some out there, you might be one, who think that, man, that's the way it should be. because it wasn't you nor your ancestors, so you might think that way. But most people is going to think it's wrong. And when we look back in time, we look at people like Thomas Jefferson, John Hancock, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin. We look at all these people who existed during the time frame of this chattel slavery in the Americas, and we say that their morality was not up to the same standard of our morality because we're practicing this historism of putting our morality on theirs. But when you look at their time frame, when you look at their mindset, a true historian, a true scholarly historian would say, why did they think that? Because those people believed that their morality was just as upstanding as your morality is today. Matter of fact, many of them would say that they were more moral towards in many areas than you are today. Look at the way we murder each other today. Look at the way we abuse ourselves today. Look at the divorce rate in America, in the world today. Many of them at that time frame would say that they are more moral than we are today, simply because they're looking at it through their lenses. But you have to ask the question: a person who was born in America in the 1700s would have been born into a situation where slavery existed. It's just a way of life. Whether you are a slave or free, whether you are black or white, it's just what it is. If you were born Native American, you were born to the Creek Nation or the Seminole Nation, then you exist and you saw the world how it was at that time frame, and your views of the world was exactly what it was because of the time frame you was born into, whom you was born to. So when we take our ideas and we put it on them, that's wrong. So we have to think about why. Why did these people believe that at that time frame? What was the information that made them believe that, hey, chattel slavery is good to go? What parts of their religion did they teach then? Because that same title religion of Christianity that the slave owner had back then is the same title Christianity that you have today. The book is the same, right? The teaching is the same, right? But of course, today people will say that, well, they didn't interpret it right back then. They didn't get it. Others would take a little small piece of scripture from Deuteronomy that wasn't in the Codex Sinaiticus and say that, well, that's just what was prophecy. So when you look at that, you ask the question, why did people believe that? Instead of putting your own morality, your own thought process on it. And you see why. You see why they believed it. You can come to an understanding of, I see why they believed it, and therefore I hold no grievances towards those people. But let's go further. When you look at the ancient Kemetics, why did they believe in Heru and Ashar and Aset? When you look at the Babylonians, why did they believe in Baal? When you look at the Persians, and you go back to the Sumerians, why did they believe in the Anunnaki and Enlil and Enki and Marduk? When you go to the Greeks, why did they believe in Zeus and Athena and Hera? Why did the Romans convert that same thing into Jupiter and Mars, and Apollo? Why did anybody, the Asians, the Aboriginals, why did anybody, the Pacific Islanders, why did they believe what they believe? When you ask that question, you stop placing yourself in a position of superiority, because the only reason that you believe what you believe, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Islamic, whether you're Christian, Buddhist, whatever, is because it's two reasons. Only two reasons. Reason number one, it's just the group that you was born into. If you was born in America, you more than likely were born into a Christian family. I was born in 1971. So if you was born in America in 1971, then more than likely you were born into a Christian family, right? And because you was born into that family, you were taught that. You were trained to believe that. You were conditioned to believe that. If you was born in Saudi Arabia in 1971, you would have been more than likely born into an Islamic family. And you would have been taught that, and you would have believed that. And there's absolutely no way that somebody would have convinced you otherwise. Now, the second reason that you believe what you believe right now is because you began to study something, or something happened that caused you to think contrary to what you have been conditioned to believe. That is the only other reason. That's the only other reason. Those are the two reasons. So when I began to ask that question, why was I Christian at the time frame, is because I was born into a Christian family. And that's what my family taught. We went to church. My grandmother sang about it, talked about it. That's what it was, right? But then I started studying. I started thinking for myself. And the more I studied and the more I thought and the more I asked that question, well, why does someone believe what they believe? Why is it that in today's world that there are people who were born into Hinduism, they've never heard of Islam, they've never heard of Christianity, they never heard of Judaism, they never heard of Shintoism, they never heard of Buddhism, they never heard of these things, and they are wholeheartedly Hindu because that's where they grew up. That's what they were born into. And when you look at the ancient religions, although we may laugh and scoff at them, you have to ask the question. At the time frame that no man had the ability to scale Mount Kilimanjaro, at the time frame that no man had the ability to scale Mount Olympus, they believed that the gods lived on the mountain. And when the mountain shook, they believed that the God was angry. When things weren't going right and the crops didn't come in, they believed that the God was angry because they did not understand at that time frame why plants grow and why they don't, why the drought came and why they didn't have satellites to see the meteorological aspects of the world at the time frame. So they just believed that the God was holding back rain. And if I gave sacrifices, then every God loves a good barbecue. So then the rains would come. They didn't understand all those things completely. Now, some civilizations did, and the information was lost, and some civilizations did, and the information was never lost. But they still attributed it to some spiritual being. And they believed it wholeheartedly. Why? Because it happened. The reason why sun worship occurred and why resurrection happened is because every day with the visible eye, you saw the sun go down. Darkness came. Men were scared of the darkness because that's when animals that they couldn't see came out. And then for some reason, on the other side, the sun would come up again, resurrected, born anew. And it would go through that pathway, go through that cycle. And then some dude said, hey, if you give me some of your cattle, I am in touch with the sun. I'm in touch with that sun god. Me and Apollo been talking. You know, me and Heru, we've been talking. I can talk to him. I got a conduit. And I can get that sun to come back up the next day. But you got to keep giving me so I can get that sun to come up the next day. You got to keep giving me so I can get Renenutet to protect your crops. You got to keep giving to me in order for that to happen. Somebody at some point created religion because the average person didn't know. Now there was a saying. I forgot who said it. I think he's either Greek or Roman philosopher, Seneca, said that religion, people, the average person, the masses, I'm just paraphrasing the whole thing, the masses, they accept religion as truth. The wise accept religion as false, but the rulers accept religion as power. And you have to think about that. Why? The masses of people don't think deeply. They just accept it as this is just truth. Those who think deeply think, it's false. And that's where the point I got to. While others recognizes the power of it, the power of that you hold over the masses when you convince the masses that you are in charge of it, that you control it somehow, that you are more in touch with it than they are. This is why you can have a Reverend Duplantis tell everybody he needs another $34 million jet. So, and people say, okay, I can't pay my bills, but let's get him a jet. I can't keep my lights on, but let's get him a jet. I'm barely feeding my family. Let's get him a jet. I can't get my credit score to go up so I can even get me a plane ticket and put it on credit, but let's get him a jet because he's doing God's work. People go for it because they accept it as just truth, and they believe that some way, somehow, whether now or in the end, they're going to get rewarded for all their giving, for all their doing. But I had to ask that question. Why did people believe at the time frames that they believe, and they believed it wholeheartedly? So who am I to judge them? Who am I to say that they were wrong? Now, did we eventually get to the Olympus and see that there's nobody there? I don't know. Maybe they exist in the spiritual plane and you just can't see them. Is there somebody on top of Mount Kilimanjaro? I don't know. Maybe they exist maybe they are of the spiritual mind. Is Hades living below the earth, and him and us, I sat and they're down there chilling, you know. Him and Asar, they down there and they taking turns like, well, you know, you get all the, you know, the Egyptians and the Africans, you know, and I get all the Greeks, and you know, so who coming? Oh, that's a Greek, so they go over there with you, Haley. That's an Egyptian, so they coming. That's Kemetic. They coming over with me, Asar. Who knows? Maybe they down there playing checkers and chess, and you just can't see them because they're in the astral plane. I can say that. You can't prove that I'm wrong. You can't prove it. Just like no one can prove the existence of any being that's outside of the physical plane. You can't prove it. You can't prove it. So, but people believe it. They believe it in mass. They believe it en masse. They believe it. And they believe whatever they were taught. So as I asked myself that question and I start to study the history, it made me realize that if I was born in the Sumerian village of Ur, then I would have believed in Baal, depending upon the time frame. Hell, depending upon the time frame, I would have believed in Enlil. I may have believed in Marduk. And I would have believed them wholeheartedly, 100%, if I was born into it. I can't say that I would think the same way I think now, and nor can you. And the only reason that you're sitting here and you're going to doubt everything that I say is simply because you refuse to think that deeply. You refuse to become the wise. So I just want to give you guys that to think about. Just think about it. And remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself. Why? Because your greatness is non-negotiable. And don't forget to subscribe. Join me on Patreon to support the channel. And I gotta get back doing more Patreon videos. And Papa, the master student, send me your information so that I can go ahead and get that popcorn out to you. Y'all have a great day. And one more time, remember, you gotta free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable.